started. So thank you so much. Thank you for your effort overall for this class and the previous class. Previous class was very successful. Everyone loved it. So this is the second class of the same sequence. And here our own Usama. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. And I'm also very glad to teach and learn. Please make me sure that my voice is clear.
It's wonderful. Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, so let's start the class. Today we'll be discussing the patch function available in the Canvas apps. So the patch function is used to create or update one or more records in the data source. For interacting with the data source, to inserting the record in database, to update the record in database, a patch function is one of the available, you can say the available functions you can use to do it. It can also use to merge two or more records. Bulk operation can also be done using it. And besides other functions, we should choose patch function whenever we want a control over the data insertion of the fields in a complex situation. Like sometimes there are multiple fields, multiple columns in a table, and you only want certain fields. You only want to insert data for certain fields, or you want to insert on conditional basis. So to handle situations like this, to insert data in these situations, which a patch function can be helpful. So its basic syntax is that you first specify the data source. Like suppose it's an Excel sheet. You specify the name of your Excel sheet, which is already connected to your Canvas app, and then you specify that whether you need to update or create the record in that data source. For create, you need to we use default function, which I'll explain in later. And for update, we give the reference of the record which we want to update, the ID of the record, you can say, the reference of the record which is in that data source, which we specify in the first parameter. And in the third parameter, we specify which fields we want to insert or we want to update, fields with their values. So it's the basic syntax. Okay. So if we want to create data, insert record in the database, we will use dispatch functions like this. Suppose the project is the name of your data source, which is a table in or a list in SharePoint or Excel or SQL or any data source. You specify the name, and then you use this defaults projects. Basically, this default is a function which returns the default value of that data source. And if the default value is not present, it returns a empty record. And we specifically use default here. It returns a empty record, indicating the patch function that yes, we need to create a new record. So whenever we need to create a new record, we use default function here. And then the third parameter, we specify the fields, the columns, and their values. And like this, we can insert data.
Sama, can you please share your screen? I'm not able to see it.
Yes, the
Okay.
screen is already shared. Maybe if you can stop sharing and then share one more time,
Yeah, let me
that will
share
help.
it. Okay, no
It will
worries.
help newcomers.
Okay, is it visible to you now?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe issues with your browser or something because everyone else can see. Um,
Or the internet might be.
Okay, sure.
yes.
You can continue. You can continue. Okay, fine.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a short explanation of default, that it returns a record that contains the default values for the data source. And if a column within data source doesn't have a default value, that property won't be present. So it's, we'll see the default function detail if we need to see it in future, but here it's function. Here we use it just to create whenever we need to create new records with patch function. I hope it's clear. The after creation, the next thing is we can update the record with patch function. If you specify the data source, let's suppose employees, and then you in the second parameter there are several ways to give the reference or the ID of the record you want to update. You can like here is an example that it uses this lookup functions from the employee table, which with the ID is equal to 123. Okay, so it will pick the record whose ID is 123 and will update its salary with 60,000. We can specify in the second parameter, we can specify there are several other ways which we'll see later, inshallah. But it's just an example that you need to specify the data source, and then you need to specify the record in that data source which you want to update, and then the parameters and its value. And yes, suppose if this record does not exist in the employee table with ID 123, then what will happen? Then it will create a new record. Means if the given the second parameter, the given record is not present, it will create that record with the given information. Then it can be used to merge two records also, but it will not be insertion or updation in the data source. It's one of its use. That's why I mentioned here that we can use patch function for merging two or more records also. Like in the example, you can see you have two records. The first one with name Contoso and the phone number, and the second with name Contoso and location Midtown. Okay, I use patch function to merge, and the result will be like this, that it will be converted to one record with all of the parameters. Okay. Yeah, and we can update or create multiple records also in bulk with patch. So the syntax for doing it is that you specify the data source, and then instead of specifying one record, you specify a table, or you can say a collection of records which you want to update, and then a collection of records, the fields and their values that you want to update, like this. And besides patching, we'll also see that if any error occurs during the updation or creation, how can we handle that error also? So there are a few ways. There can also be other ways, but here I have mentioned these three ways. One is the if error. If error is something like this, that if error, and then you specify the whole you can say the function which might be inserting or creating the record, and if any error occur, it will do this, notify the problem in first action. It will show this notification. Or if the error will you know if the error does not occur, it will return false. Or in this case, it will goes to the second statement and execute that statement. But if the error occurs in the first statement, it will not go further. And if all the statements execute successfully, it will return this default true. You can get it obviously by practicing it. And the second one is error function. It's simply, it's returns true or false. With if error, you can do some action, notify, or anything else you can do in the second parameter. But in the is error message, it just return that is it an error or not. Like in this, I am dividing 1 by 0, which obviously is an error, so it will return true in this case. And the other one is error. This is, for if you want to produce your custom error message. Like you check some condition, you check like in the example, if one date is greater than end date, start date is greater than end date, you have to show the error message. There is no error in the runtime or in the logic, but you want this error, a custom error for your own business needs. So you can use this to produce this, show this message to the user as an error. Okay, so it's, I have explained you the basic syntax and the basic concept. Now I will use all these things, inshallah, in the demo live. Explain, inshallah. So let's start by creating a blank app. With tablet layout. Can say batch function. For example. Please focus that I'm choosing this tablet format, that because of this, it will give me a tablet layout, a wider layout. Okay, and I need your guys' focus here because we are going to practically see the things. I've
So
created
let me
this.
just briefly give one point here. So yeah, excellent. Thank you, Usama. Yeah, you're doing a wonderful job. So for the patch function, there are different other ways to submit the data to the data source from the Canvas app. But the
Yes,
patch function is one of them. So
exactly.
you can submit just like when we use just the HTML form and we submit as a HTML form, and like the people those are familiar with the HTML and the regular submit option in HTML. So we can actually submit entire form as well, but that's a totally different approach. But we are not submitting entire forms in this case. In this case, we are just it's a custom built form. It's not, we are not using the form tag at all in this case. Even you can use the form tag as well, but mostly with the patch function, it's just a custom built kind of the layout. So we are not using the form form approach, and we are just using the patch approach to submit the data to the data source. Yes, please. I thought I should just give some more clarity on that,
Yeah, thank you
how
so
to
much.
submit the data.
Exactly. It surely provide a clear insight that there are several ways to insert data, but we are focusing in this session on the patch function.
Patch
And
function, that's right.
with the patch function can be used to submit uh, the data without a form and with form also. But with form, you can only no, for the submit. There are other ways which we explore in the later sessions, but for patch function, it can be used without the form and with form to insert the data. Okay. So for this app and example, I have a SharePoint list with me. Its name is to do task list. It's a simple list with three columns. One is the title, other is the description, and third one is status. Status is its type is choice. The type of description is multi-text, and the type of title is single text. So it's just like just like a table in any data source. So I will be using this to explain the patch function. So first, let me connect with it, and you can see how you can connect with data in the Canvas app if you have missed or if you want to clarify any point. You can see I will select SharePoint. The connection is already added, but if I need to add connection, I can simply do this. Okay, then in SharePoint, we have these sites. We need to select the site in which my list is residing. In my case, it's residing here in all company. Here is my list. To do task list, connect. Okay, it's connected. Now, let's start by giving the user ability to insert data by adding some fields, by adding some text inputs, which I can do from here like this. One for title and one for description. Let me add some labels also. Let me rename the input fields because it's a best practice to name your controls with proper naming convention. Okay, default is cleared. Its default is clear. And let me rename it from here. Text input 1. It's for that. I can say title. I can say it like this: input title. And then this input description. Done. And then let's add a button to add the data to perform action of submit. Let's rename it submit. Okay. It's really straightforward. I have just added two fields and a button to fields to capture the data and button to insert the data. Now, on select of this button, I will use pass function. Patch, and then the name of the data source, which is to do task list. And then I will use default because we are creating new records. Default in to-do list. And then I will add the fields and its values. Title. It's already giving me the options and suggestions to drive the formula and inputs. For title, I will get value from the input control, which are renamed as input title. Dot text. Then the description. It's already giving me the suggestion, and it's picking the suggestion from the data source mentioned in the first parameter. And the description will take data from input description. Dot text, because this is the name and we need its text. Then I'll close the brackets like this, and it's okay. I'm missing something. Let's see. Patch, default. Okay, default, I think. Yep. So you see, I missed this as it's default, not default. Okay. Let's try this. So it's a task, attend session, description. For now, XYZ, submit. Okay, so now to see if it's submitted or not, let's go to our list and refresh it. Yeah, it's here, added here at the end. To see it in our app, let me add a gallery for it. I will add this vertical gallery. We'll choose the data source I'm already connected to, which is our list. And then let me choose the layout, title, subtitle. Yes. So it already, select, set the title and the description. You can see. Let me add some borders so that, just to. Okay. So as you can see, attend session, let's try it now. If I add attend session 2, so is it ABC? Yeah, it's added here. It's inserting. But the record is coming at the end. Let me show you one thing, that how can you bring this record in the front, the latest record in the front. So for this, I select the gallery, and in the items, in this items function, I will do this. Use the sort function. It's a simple function. Sort, you need to choose the data source, the column on the base of which you want to sort. Let me see if you have modified. Yeah. Modified, it's created by and modified by our columns, which are already created in the list. You don't need to create them. It's already created out of the box to store the created on date and modified on date information like this. And I want to sort it descending. So it will give me, yeah, sort order dot descending. So as you can see, it's coming in the front now. Okay. So what if as you see that I can add the data in the data source. But if I want to select the data in the gallery and show here and edit the data. Okay, but before going to that, let me show you that we haven't added this status field. Okay, and how can we add it? Let's see. See, this title and description was very simple. It's of text type. Okay, but this choice, the third one was of type choice, you can say. So let's see how to use that one. Okay. I will use this drop down. Here. Status. And then I will bind it to bind it with the choices available in the data in my table. I will do something like this. I will use function choices, and then the data source, then its column, which is status, if I'm not wrong. Yep. Yeah, so it's coming now. You can see. Not started, completed, in progress. And let me add one entry here to show status also. Title, subtitle. Yep. Status can also be shown, seen here. Let's try this. Session 3. Completed. Thing happens. Okay. Yeah. It, you see the value of the status is not started, which is its value by default. It's not reflected. Why it's not reflected? Because we haven't added it in the third parameter to map it to map the column with its new value. So let me do it like this. Status, and I didn't renamed it Let me rename it also. Drop down status. Okay, status. Drop down status dot selected, and boom. Now let's see. Session 4, something like this. Completed. Submit. Yeah, you see, it's reflecting now. So this how we can insert data. Obviously, there are so many other type of columns available and different types. This is a very good article in which the how to deal with different kind of columns, different types of columns. We need to how to add data in different type of columns. It's a very good blog. I will share it with you, inshallah. Okay, now we have to update the data. Now we have to edit the data which is already inserted into the records. For this, I will use a variable. I will use a variable and will store the selected record of the gallery in that variable, and then will bound that variable to these fields. What I mean is, whichever record I select here, the information of the selected record will goes to that variable, and these fields will be binded to that variable will show the selected record. And then when the record will be reflected here, we will simply update it. Let's see how. So on select of this, I will set a variable. I'm using here this set function. It's used to initialize a variable and set its value. Let me name the variable as selected record. Okay. And then set its value to this item. Now, this item here is the selected item of the gallery. It's the out of the box property provided by this control. That whenever you select this item, all this information is available in this variable, which is this item. And you can simply assign that selected this item to variable, and then can bind this field to this variable. Variable name was selected record dot title. Okay, what issue do we have? Say that I have an issue with sick. Okay, might be it will be corrected automatically in 5 minutes. I think some issue with the rendering. Okay, then I need to set its default value to selected item. Selected record dot description. Yeah, fair enough. Dot title. Okay, and then yep. We have a default property for it. Yep. It's locked. Okay. For choices, I will do this. Selected item dot status. Let's see what's happening. Might be something wrong with the internet.
Sometimes it takes a little longer. That's totally fine. Just wait for a few seconds.
Hmm. If my voice is clear and my screen is visible, then my internet is working fine. It's something wrong with this. So,
That's what I'm saying because sometimes it takes a little longer. So just be patient. It should be fine.
see. If I'll open the new page, maker.power apps, and it will, flush all this away.
That's the
No
problem
worries.
with the cloud because
No worries.
sometimes
I have the same app in my other trial account. I can show from there. I was practicing it before presenting it, so I can present from here. No issues. So we were here that on the gallery, on select function of the gallery, I set this variable. You can say selected item with this item. So whatever the item is selected will goes to this selected item. Then I bind this selected item variable with the input fields. If I go into the default, yeah, like this selected item the title, and then selected item the description, and then selected item dot complete dot value. Here the name is different of the choice, but it's pretty understandable, right? Okay, so let's see. This is the list of the records I have. Whichever I select is reflected on the left side in the fields. If I need to update it, let's see how to update it. See if our apps works or not. Okay. Shall I reload it or what? Forget. So now we were using this submit button to create the record. Now, if we use the same button to edit the record, we need to do some changes in the formula. Let me clean it for you. So as you can see, this was the initial formula, the name of the data source, default, and the parameters, and nothing else. Yeah. Okay. So what I did, if I select this record and will use the submit button, instead of updating that record, it creates a new record. Okay. And this is the expected behavior because we are using this default here and not specifying any record. Now let me specify the record. We can say, as I mentioned earlier, that whatever record selected in the gallery will be saved to this selected item variable. Okay, so here I can give the reference that please update this item with these values. Now let's see. I select this, the first one. I made it 356 instead of, I'm changed it to 365. Okay, changed. And description changed. And choice to choice 2 and submit. And it's updated. Okay. Now, if I'll use this button, it will only be used to update the record. What if I need to use the same button to create and update the records at the same time? I will use a simple if statement. Okay. like this. What it does that it checks, the if statement checks that if the variable, which is the selected item, which gets populated whenever a record is selected in the gallery, that if there is a record in this item, if any item is selected, then, oh, sorry, if it's blank, no item is selected, then create the record, use the default one. And if it's not blank, then use the variable which is populated and update it. Simple, very simple. And I added this button here to add the new record. What it does, it simply blanks the empty the variable which gets populated on the selection of the record. I hope you all are getting all the points, and if there is any question, you can ask me. No issues. Let's see. If I click this, what it does, it will give me new record, new description with choice 1. Okay, submitted. It added this record. Okay. Now I'll select from here, or let's change and then select it again. Now I want to change it. New record updated. New description updated with choice 2. Let's see what it does. It simply update the record. Okay, so let me explain again that what I did. According to the patch function, if you want to create new record, you have to use the default, otherwise you have to give the reference. So I simply check that if the reference, if any record is present in this variable, then use this variable, otherwise use the default to create the record. Simple. Okay. Now the next thing comes, what if I create a record with empty title and submit? But you should not give me error like that. What issue do you have? It's not updating somehow. By the way, if you try to submit this without data, it will give you error, and that error is not user friendly. And to handle that error, it will give you network error, runtime error like this, network error when using patch function. To avoid this network runtime error, we use, like I told, that to handle the error, we can use functions like IfError, isError, or error. So let me show you how I use IfError to catch that error to avoid the runtime error. Okay. Okay, I got it. I got it. Don't worry. So before this patch function, I added this IfError and all this block which ends here. And then if any error occur in this whole block, I will notify the user with the user-friendly message with notification type error for 2 seconds. Simple. Let me save it. Still there. Okay, let's try it now. So as you can see that it gives a user-friendly message, and I hope it will not give me that network error. The error was there. Yeah, it doesn't give any network error. Okay, so this we observed that how to create the record, how to update the record, and how to handle the errors. And the other thing I need to show you is how now you want to delete this record. You have multiple garbage records. Now, if you want to delete, you can simply, I want to delete this. Select this and press this, and it will be deleted. Press it and delete it. How? For this, we just simply use a simple function, remove the name of the data source and the reference to the item which you want to delete. And as you already know that in selected item, the selected item of the it's populated with the selected item of the gallery. So it removes the selected item like this. So alhamdulillah, it saved my our session that I already created this app in my trial environment, because this one is I can simply reload it, but it might flash all the work. So I'm done with the patch function explanation. Now, if someone needs any clarity, any questions, then you can go ahead. Arshad, do you want to add something?